So the last day that I left, my last day at work was Tuesday, I believe. And I was driving to work in Betty White, my 96 F250. Sometimes I dump my garbage at work, friends. It just saves me time on the weekends. We don't have garbage collection here because we're so rural. Hopefully the wind doesn't, hopefully it's not too loud. But I was driving to work in the morning. I got about halfway up the highway and I went, geez, my lights are dim. And anyhow, I was too close to the city to turn around and, so I limped her in. And I noticed, friends, my charging gauge was quite low. It was showing about 12.5 volts, which is what the battery should be sitting at. So my truck broke, friends. I limped it home Tuesday night and left her where she's sitting. While I was in Ohio, I ordered a new AC Delco alternator. So today's video, let's work on the truck together. I take for granted the things that I know, and I was talking to a lot of younger fellas. I'm kind of right in the middle in this group. There's older fellas than me, and there's younger fellas. I'm kind of right smack dab in the middle, in my 40s. But I sometimes take for granted the things I know, and there was a couple of guys at Bunyan that drive older trucks, and they're kind of asking me some questions, and I thought, let's share the knowledge. So let's put a new alternator in this thing, and if we have time, I have a high performance, high torque starter that I want to mount in this truck. If you guys remember last year, my starter died. I took it apart, cleaned it, reassembled it, and I've been using the same starter since. Well, I ordered a brand new high torque starter online, a very expensive starter, but I've never put it in. It's been sitting underneath my bench. But anyhow, I'm going to show you guys how I tested and figured out that, hey, I need an alternator. Okay, let's do this. Okay, first things first, if you buy an old truck, you're a woodman, you're running a tree service, whatever, a young fella, you're buying an old truck because you need a truck to do work, and you don't want to spend, $89,000 to buy a new truck or whatever they cost now. They're just ridiculous. The price of new trucks has just gotten way up there. You want to have a truck, but you can't afford a new one. Well, you can buy an old truck like this. These trucks aren't cheap, but you could buy, you could buy 7 or 8 of them for the price of a newer truck here. First thing you want to do when you first get your new truck, get acquainted with where your gauges should sit. That gives you a baseline of where your truck likes to run. And that way, if something goes wrong, you can notice, hey, my truck's not charging. This one here, my oil pressure is usually past center to the higher end of the scale. My temp gauge, if I'm not towing, if it's real hot out, it sits at the N on normal. This thing's fairly cold-blooded. If I'm towing with the air on, it'll go to the O, but that's it. And this right here is my charging gauge. Now, let's fire this truck up. I'll put the key in it. So this truck always, since I've had it, let's turn the, okay, you have the weight to start on. Now, this thing right now is glow plugging. Glow plugs turn off, turn it over. Okay. Now, since I've had this truck, the gauge will sit like this when the glow plugs are cycling. They'll do that for a little bit, and then it'll go boom, and it'll go about to the center of normal. Okay. Little past center. This ends 8 volts, this ends 18. The battery should read at about 12.5. When you're charging, you should be 13 to 14. So the difference from here to here is 10 volts. So halfway would be 5. 5 plus 8 is 13 volts. So this thing should be anywhere between half and a little bit past half if it's working. Well, you guys notice, see how it just barely went up there? This truck is not charging, okay? Okay, pop your hood. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. So, first thing, well, what shape are your batteries in? You guys remember last year I put 2 brand new Napa Gold batteries in this thing. They weren't cheap, but these batteries should be fine. I should probably start thinking about putting battery ends on this, but again, they're fine. Did you lose your belt? No, belt's still on here. It's not cracked. So the question is, how do you know if it's your alternator? Alternator is right here on this truck. First thing is, how old does it look? And I know that sounds silly. This alternator looks like it's been on here since 1996. In fact, I reckon this is the original alternator. Now, that doesn't mean that's the problem. So 2 things you got to know about an alternator is, I checked this one. I looked at the wiring schematics. Remember, friends, it's all online. If you're looking for something on your vehicle, especially if it's old, go online, and somebody over time will have had the same problem, and they'll probably have a write-up, a thread, or a video on how to fix it. That's how I roll. I've never owned one of these trucks, and really I've never worked on one of them. Even when I was a piecework mechanic back in the day, I didn't really work on these trucks. Anyhow, so you look at the wiring schematic, and let's see right here, this wire here, okay, this is your power lead to the alternator, okay, and that has power. This should be live all the time, even with the key off, okay. So first things first, make sure you have power at the alternator. I'll show you guys how I tested that. And this is with the key off, engine off. Okay, I got you guys set up under the hood. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. Unplug your 2 leads. I like to do that with a snap-on screwdriver that one of you guys sent me. Okay, right here. This is your 12-volt power lead. I'll tuck that heater hose out of the way. This power lead goes down to the starter solenoid. It is live all the time, but it has a fusible link on it. What a fusible link is basically a fuse that's built in to the wire. And if you overload the circuit, it will pop the wire. The wire will actually melt away, and it acts as a fuse. Okay? So the first question is, you grab your multimeter. And again, if you don't have one of these, you can pick them up cheap and cheerful. They're available pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Okay, can you guys see that? Let's have a look here. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take the black lead, okay? You guys don't need to see this part. I'm going to stick it onto the battery lead, the black side, the negative, okay? That's the ground. Now I have the key off. I'm going to take this end of the lead and I'm going to stick it into this end. Okay? What do we have here? 12.4 volts. So that tells us that we have power at the battery, doesn't it? Okay, so right there, that's checking out the way it should. Now I'm going to plug this back in. Okay, now what we want to do is I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to undo this plug right here. Okay, I'll actually unplug it so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, here's the end of the plug. It's got this rubber seal. Keep water out of there. Don't rip that, because if you rip that, you should probably buy a new pigtail, which is the end of this plug, and wire it in, because you don't want this to get full of water ever, because you could lose your charging system. Okay, there's the end of our plug, and again, it's the wire right here. I'll plug this back in. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the truck back up, and I'm going to check that it has power, or full power, at when it's running. Sometimes you'll get a power drop. Maybe you'll get 6 or 8 volts to the alternator when the truck's running, and what will happen is you won't charge. Okay, let's fire this truck back up. Okay, I shut the truck off. Now, notice there was a little bit of a voltage drop. When you fire these big diesels up, they have 2 batteries. Those glow plugs draw like, I think it's 60 amps. Glow plugs are underneath the valve covers. That's what heats up the combustion chamber so that a diesel will start. This thing's a little hard starting right now because my batteries are drained down. I drove about 60 miles with no charging system. A little bit of a voltage drop I'm not too concerned about because I was testing right at the battery lead. So that tells us we have power at the alternator, but we are not charging. So let's go ahead and change out this alternator, and then we'll check the battery again and see if we're charging. As with most repairs, but this one it actually matters, disconnect your battery, and you don't want to spark anything and, you know, make a mess. Okay, this truck here, good time to look at my air filter. It looks good. It's very dusty where I live, so air filter maintenance is, well, it's one of the top things here. Okay, I'm going to undo the positive on this side, and this goes up. I'm going to make a mental note. I want to replace these battery cables before winter. Put you guys down here so you can see this side. I think what I'm going to do is get the universal ones with the posts, because I have, this is a harness for, I have a small winch that I can use for tree work or to pull vehicles or whatever. The other end of the winch just plugs in, and it's got a whole bunch of relays and that kind of stuff on it. Okay, but first things first, disconnect your batteries, get them out of the way. Make sure they're not touching. Get you a breaker bar. Now if you go down here, there's a tensioner right up top on this truck, right where it should be. Okay, what you want to do is pull on it. Hope you guys can see that. Pull on it, and that pulls tension off the belt. Now, this is a big, heavy tensioner. Be careful not to get your fingers in between the belt. Okay, hold tension on there and walk the belt off the alternator. Now, I'm going to leave it like this. Let go of it gently and try and keep it on all the pulleys so that after I don't have to rerun my entire belt. Okay, I'm just going to tuck it in there for now. Undo your power lead right here. Okay, put that out of the way. Now, there is a 10 millimeter on the back of this one. There's a power lead that goes to your battery. Okay, undo that power lead. Okay, it's just a 10 millimeter nut, heavy gauge wire. Okay, and I'm just going to slip that off the back. Here it is right here. Okay. Okay, move that out of the way. Now this is clipped onto here. I'm going to walk this off gently so that this clip doesn't break. Again, this is like a 30-year-old truck, so you got to be kind of careful because, well, stuff wants to break on you because it's just so old. Okay, we're doing pretty good here. Now, I'm going to grab 13 millimeter right here. Whew, that was tight. Okay, break these all loose. Notice I'm not using my impact gun. I could, if you have one. This is a good impact gun kind of job. I'm just going to do this by hand because I'm not in a hurry. I'm exactly where I should be. One thing I've learned as I've gotten older, especially being a father, is patience. I used to get myself into trouble. I'd be working on something because I'd be in such a rush to get it done. Now I prepare, make sure I got all the parts I need before I even touch it. And that way my chances of success are just way better. The other thing I did off camera the other day, I didn't film it, I checked that this was grounded. I checked for continuity, put one end of the lead of my, okay, put this on. Okay, put this on in ohms. This unit here. Here, I'll stick it back up here for you guys, because again, I can't assume, oh, my clip broke off here. Oh, well. We'll fix that after. I can't assume that everybody knows how to work one of these. Okay, and what you do is you touch them together and you'll get a resistance number, okay? So what I did was, I put one lead to the ground on the battery and one lead to the alternator. And what I ended up with was continuity, okay? That tells me that my alternator is grounded. If it's not, well, maybe we got a problem, okay? So, this stuff's pretty simple. I think I was talking to David Swoboda about, he wanted to know about chainsaw electronics, and I thought, well, this is probably a good video to show some electrical work on. Now, I'm going to say this has probably been changed. It's a Bosch Premium, and it's got a part number on it. Yeah, so this is not a new alternator, but it's definitely old. It looks like it's been on here for a while. Next thing I'm going to do is compare my two alternators and make sure that this one is the same as the new one that I got. Okay, now one thing to compare is the pulley. My truck has a 7.3 diesel, so it's got the big pulley. It's got one more groove than this one, so I changed the pulley out. Just these little details. Most often times you don't have to do that, but in this case I did. So how do you get it off? Impact gun. It's not keyed on, or you know, it doesn't have a keyway or a taper. It comes right off. Impact gun, and just a quick little shunk and off she comes. If you don't have an impact gun, I guess you could use a strap wrench or something like that to hold it and ratchet. Now I know what you might be saying, if you're a young fella, even if you're an older fella, not everybody grows up pulling wrenches. It's a blessing and sometimes it's a curse. And you might say, well, I don't have any tools, so that's why I pay other people to fix my stuff. I get it. But here's the thing. A good quality tool, you're going to buy it once. So, just clipping that back on. I've been collecting tools for my 42 years on this earth, or probably 30 some odd years of that, at least. Once you buy a good quality tool, you have it for life. And so the only way to start collecting tools is to start buying them as you need them, and eventually you'll have almost every tool you've ever needed. I get excited when it's time to add a new tool to the repertoire because, well, I have almost every tool I could ever need, whether it be small engine tools or, you know, Harley tools, motorcycle, trucks, my skid steer. I could pretty much work on anything I have to with the tools I already own. So, and yes, it's tens of thousands of dollars, and you might say, well, I might not pay that in labor over my life, but to each their own, right? I don't have it in me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've really never owned anything with a warranty. My wife's car has warranty. That's kind of nice. But I'm just not that guy. Even as I get older and I can afford things more, I still like to work on my own stuff. Okay, reassembly. Put the red wire back on. Again, this is real simple maintenance. 90% of the time when you're not charging an alternator, I included the other stuff because sometimes it's not just an alternator. Maybe you can buy a $6 fusible link versus a $250 alternator. So that's just kind of where I'm at. Thought I'd mention that to you guys. Now, usually 98% of the time it is you just need an alternator. I'll over tighten that a little bit and you'll be fine. Okay, take your two power wires, the ones that we were checking earlier, clip them back in. Clip that one back on. Now, here's the fun part. We need to pull. Need to put this belt back on. And again, because I took it off gently, all I have to do is get this tensioner, put my breaker bar on here. This isn't the best breaker bar, she's kind of loose. This thing's ancient. I think I bought this at a yard sale. This thing's older than I am for sure. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm putting this on here wrong. And again, if you're not sure which way your belt goes, refer to the belt diagram, which is what I'm probably going to do, because I'm 98% sure I'm doing this wrong. And I am. Indeed, I am. The belt diagram is down here on the rad cradle. Okay, I have it the right way now. But again, this needs to loop underneath this top idler pulley. So I'm going to just put this around here. Friends, I don't think I'm going to do the starter on film today. We can do that on another video. But, or make a little, you know, make a section of a video on that. And again, when you're putting these belts back on, make sure it's in all the grooves. Because if you start the truck and it's not in the grooves, well, guess what? It's going to fly off or you're going to chew your belt up. This is a pretty heavy duty belt and not a cheap one. Again, one of the reasons why I bought this truck, when I looked at it, it had a new belt. It had a new this. The front end was rebuilt. I can do all that stuff, friends, but I'd rather have somebody else do it and just pay a little bit more at this point in my life because, well, it's only so many hours in a day. Okay, next thing to do, hook up your positive battery lead right here. Okay, let's fire this truck back up and see if there's any difference. Again, glow plugs are running. It's getting cold enough out now that I need them. The other reason why I'm putting a starter in this truck is it turns over a little slower than it should. I'm hoping I need a starter and not a full wiring harness because this truck's old. But okay, let's fire this thing up. Already it's charging higher than it was. And it should bounce back. The glow plugs do run for a little bit when you first fire this truck up. This is how it used to be. We'll see if it bounces back up. Now it's already charging higher than it was, so remember, it never got, it's right in the middle right now where it should be. And again, when this thing was running, we were only getting 12.1 volts, okay, at that lead, and we were only getting 12.1 volts. See, and you guys can see the glow plugs just shut off and it went past center. This is where it used to be the whole time. Let's go under the hood with the multimeter and let's check our voltage. Now, this truck has something cool in it. Now, I already know this is a factory idle controller. I have to have the e-brake on for this, okay? So what this is for, if you're running a PTO or you're boosting somebody, because again, this is a work truck, this is a factory accessory from Ford. You hit that button and it'll fast idle your truck. So we know we're getting 12.3 volts. We were only getting, or 14.3 volts. That's where this thing should be at right now. Before we changed the starter, or the alternator rather, we were only getting 12.11. Okay, friends? Let's check this thing under the hood and make sure it's charging, even though we know we have that, but you're probably not going to have that on your truck unless you have a vintage turbo diesel Ford like this. Hope that helped you guys kind of understand how to change an alternator and diagnose it properly. I find over the years, mechanics, technicians, and this isn't a shot at all technicians and mechanics, but in my own day-to-day experience, we have a fleet of vehicles that work on that. I find a lot of guys are just, they swap parts. And by swapping parts, I mean, I think it's this, so we'll just throw that at it. Diagnose things properly. You're not always going to be 100% as a mechanic, but again, make sure you got power at the alternator, both running and off, and make sure it's grounded. If all those things don't check out and you have good batteries, you need an alternator. Thanks for watching. Take her easy. See you guys in a couple days. Later.